Hello, I'm retired Battalion Chief Larry Cockman, Chairman of the Greensboro Fire Department History Book Committee. The American Fire Service is rich in tradition and culture. A firefighter's life is filled with many emotional highs and lows. Stories of major fires, national disasters, medical calls, firehouse living, and family life are often verbally shared from one generation to another. Many times, these stories are lost forever when a firefighter passes away. In an effort to preserve these stories, in 2019, the Greensboro Fire Department History Book Committee launched a new program of recording audio-video of our retirees' lives. These stories will be shared on our website, gfhbc.org. In 2020, we did not record because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Please listen as these firefighters share their life experiences with all of us.
Danny Clifford Waller. I'm 74 years old, and I was on the fire department for 34 years, battalion chief. I retired as a battalion chief. I've been in Guilford County since I was about 4 years old. My dad during World War II was in ORD, you know what that is. And when he got out of service, he liked the area so much he moved back. And so I've been in Guilford County since I was about 4 years old. It was the overseas replacement depot, and soldiers during World War II were here before they were shipped cross country by train. At least that's where my dad was. Cross country by train, and got on ships in California and sailed. He went to the Philippines in Okinawa. Before I joined the fire department, I had just gotten out of college, and I went to work with a Mutual of New York, a company here in Greensboro. And I had worked there for about a year and a half. I was downtown one day. Their office was downtown. So I was walking down Green Street one day, and I met a gentleman named Raymond Cockman at Old Central Station. And he saw me, and I knew Raymond. He knew me. I used to drive school bus for his children. So Raymond knew me, and I guess, and through you, basketball and stuff. And he came out and he said, "Danny, what are you doing?" And I told him, and he said, "You need to come to work with the fire department." And I said, "Oh, I don't know about that, Raymond." And so we talked for a while, and about a week later, I was going back down, I was going to eat or something, and I saw Raymond was working again. He came out, and he urged me to come to work with the fire department. So I said, "Well, what do I have to do?" So he said, "Come on," and he took me in to see Chief Powell. And I filled out an application, and I left. And that's how I kind of got interested in the fire department. Back to my job with Mutual New York, they were going to send me to New York for a week's training. So I called Chief Powell, and I told him, I said, "Chief Powell," I said, "my company's getting ready to send me to New York. And if I'm going to get a job with the fire department, I don't think it's fair for me to go to New York and waste their time and mine. So can you tell me if I'm going to be hired?" And he said, "I'll call you back." So he called me back in about an hour, and he said, when can you be at the training center?" And I said, "You tell me, I'll be there." It was so about 2:00 that afternoon, I went out there and took a written test and a physical test. You know what it was, going hanging out of the window and doing that. I don't remember it all. I remember, let's see, I had to do we'd do push-ups and run and had to go up inside the training tower and sit on the window ledge and lower myself out of the window and then push myself back up and get back in the window. Well, I was fortunate enough to earn a scholarship to Virginia Tech to play football. So I was up there, and I got my knee hurt real bad in a game against Wake Forest, as a matter of fact. And after my junior year, I decided to come home because I really couldn't play anymore because of the knee. And I was homesick anyway, so I came home and went to GTCC while I was on the fire department, and ended up getting an associate degree in fire science technology. Starting salary was somewhere around $480, something like that. But that was, well, RL was making about $1,000 a month, I think. So that was 1971, October the 1st. Some of the people in my class, they included Jimmy Williams, Eddie Nix, Jimmy Eller, Tom Sladkey, Joe Smith, Steve Robinson, Bill Faust. We had a guy named Lonnie Klutz who had played at a high level basketball, A&T. I think he even played some pro ball. He was in our class. I'm sure I left somebody out, but I'm sorry about that.
Funny stories in training. I know training is pretty serious. The funnier stories when you...
In training, the guys that were in our class were pretty athletic, pretty competitive, and everything we did out there in training, we were in 2 separate groups, and those groups competed like crazy, whether it was sliding rope, pompier, or whatever it was. We raced each other. I remember one day Jimmy Williams, I think it was Jimmy, was sliding the rope and was trying to see who could get to the net the fastest. Well, he got there real fast. He hit the net, the helmet flew way out in the parking lot, and Chief Osborne, Bill Osborne, and Chief Reese Kent were our training officers. They shut it down right then, took us in, gave us a little scolding, and but that was kind of the way our training went. It was very competitive. A pompier ladder is a single beam ladder with steps on the beam. It's got a hook on the top, and you sit in one windowsill, and you push the ladder up to the next window, and you put the hook in. You get out of the window, and you climb up the outside of the building from story to story. I think the training center was six stories that we went up and over the top. And that is the pompier. I don't think the Greensboro Fire Department does that anymore. Yeah, during my career, I first realized that this was the job for me when I went into training October the 1st. We were there at the training center for 2 weeks, my group, and we, like a lot of other classes, we painted and cleaned and did stuff around the training center and getting it in shape for our class later. Then they sent us out to fire stations without a lot of training to be trained somewhat by the guys at the stations. I was sent to Station 3, and I was on a shift with, my first captain was Ed Lee. George Trogdon was a driver. I love George. And Steve Faust and was on that shift. And so was Jim Bullard. Well, the first night I was there, the very first night, in the bed asleep, the alarm goes off. I jump on the truck with those guys, and they're really real protective of me. They got me over there where I couldn't fall off the truck, and we went to a fire, and they told me to kind of watch, but it was a working fire the first night I was there, and it was just in my blood after that. I loved it. I thought, man, this is the greatest thing, going out and helping people whenever they're at their neediest time. The Smith Holmes fire, my captain I was on Engine 11. My captain on Engine 11 was off duty that day, Captain Ritchie, and I was the acting captain, and Cliff Oakley was the captain on the ladder truck. We got a call, Smith Holmes, and en route we were told there were were people trapped in the house, in the apartment. Well, when we got there, in fact, the fire was under the stairwell and burning up the stairwell. There was smoke had filled the top of the apartment. I'm not exactly sure how many children were up there. I would say 3 or 4, and the lady, the mother. Well, I was, like I said, I was the captain, and so I was trying to get things set up. And my guys, and Cliff Oakley and Charlie Jones, they were fantastic on this call. They were up there. And so we didn't even have air packs on. It was that trying to get in and get those kids out. So I went up the stairs and I met Charlie Jones coming down the stairs with a kid. So I told Charlie, I said, hand me this one and you get another one, because I didn't know where they were, and he already did, so I thought I'd just take them outside. Well, when I got outside, the kid wasn't breathing. So we started resuscitation and stuff like that. There were about, like I said, there was 3 or 4 kids in that building, in that apartment, and the mother, and we got them all out. There's a question in there about the proudest moment. This is kind of a two-edged sword type of thing. Battalion 3, I was battalion chief there, and it was a real snowy night. A lot of snow and ice on the road, and we got a call. I can't remember exactly the street, but it was over there behind Four Seasons Mall, back over there off of Pembroke somewhere. And we got over there, and there were 3 people in that house. And our guys, 10, engine 10, truck 10, the squad, engine 8, they all came. And of course, I was out there in the car in command, and I was watching the scene there, and I saw them keep pulling people out of the house. They pulled 3 people out, and they had them laying out there on tarps in the snow doing CPR on all 3 of them. And unfortunately, all of them perished. But as I looked at that scene, and I thought, man, how proud I am of these guys. That in the dead of night, with all their training and everything, they come out here and risk themselves to go in this house that was on fire and pull these people out and do everything they could to save these people. It was just a snapshot that I'll never forget. When we lose a firefighter, my first feelings are shock, disbelief, sadness, what the life of what could have been. I was at Station 11, and we lost a firefighter in a traffic accident. And I remember Captain Teeters calling me at home to tell me that firefighter had been killed. And it was just, like I said, it was just, you see him, you remember the things that you and he talked about, or the fires you were on together, and that sort of thing. And it's a sad time. But the fire department always rallies around the families of those people, and it was that type of thing too. This young man was not married. So we reached out to his parents and his family, and did everything we could for them. And that's just the way the fire department is. It's a good group of people. I cooked until I got promoted to battalion chief, and they wouldn't let me cook anymore. They'd had enough. Probably because I couldn't cook. But yeah, I had guys suffer through my cooking from the time I was a firefighter. We cooked about every 3rd or 4th day. We cooked. It was our turn in the kitchen.
Meals?
Lunch and dinner, yes.
How much did it cost for you? When you tell us about how that works? Explain that question a little bit.
Well, we had a station divvy that bought a lot of our stuff. The sugar, the flour, the staples, so to speak. Actually, it was called staples sometimes. But then we would pitch in every morning, $2.50 or $3 each, and whoever was cooking would go to the store and buy what was going to be cooked that day. and he was responsible for preparing it. I didn't really have a favorite one. I kind of stole from other guys. I wasn't a very good cook at that time. I'll tell you, one of the big thing was the Red Hots and the pinto beans, cornbread, and slaw. That was a lunch at the fire station. Saturday was hot dogs always. In the let's say the bedrooms at the time I was there was more like a dorm. Now I understand they have their individual cubicles. I think the difference, some of the difference, it was hard to get away from those snores. Some of those guys really would rattle the walls with their snoring and stuff. But it was, I don't know, it was I don't know if it was more close knit, but you could lay in a bed and talk to each other and holler down the way at another one. And now with the individual cubicles, it's more private. Probably so.
Tell us the advantages.
You keep a lot of personal items in there and pictures of your wife and family.
The advantages to having a cubicle.
The advantages of having a cubicle would be you'd have a lot of personal items in there, pictures of your wife, children, things like that, stuff that means something to you. You couldn't really do that in the dorm setting. I think the differences in our generation and the generation today at the fire service, like you said, most of them have a fire science degree when they come home. They have already done the EMT training a lot, I think, when they've come home. These were things that we did together back then. It was, I don't know, I don't want to say more close-knit, because I'm sure these guys today the tradition carries on as far as the camaraderie and the closeness. But back when I came through, there was a lot of joking, a lot of tricks played, a lot of stuff is done back then that's I think is absolutely forbidden today. But it was a different time, and it was a lot of fun. When a retired firefighter visits a fire station today, it's important that the firefighters at that station treat him with respect and be nice to him. Invite him in, offer him a cup of coffee, talk to him, because it wasn't very long ago that we were right in the same place they were in. We are, whether they like it or not, we are the generation that passed on the fire service to them. And I think the time I was on the fire department, I think we did a pretty good job of building the fire department, the fire service, and making the Greensboro Fire Department part of what it is today, a very good organization. And I think, I know when I was at the fire station and we called them old timers, when they would come by, we would go out of our way to be nice to them and to talk to them and invite them to lunch and just stuff like that to let them know we appreciated the job that they did when they were here.
No, we're the old timers.
Yeah, we're in the checkout lane.
75.
Well, in the city of Greensboro, fire stations are located in strategic areas throughout the city, and fire service will be there first. I mean, we can be there. I think response times are. I used to shoot for 2 minutes. I don't know what it is now, but you get there in 2 or 3 minutes. Whereas the EMS, in some cases, may be on the other side of the county. And our response times are quicker. We can get to the scene quicker. We can start the treatment quicker. I think that's the major issue with that.
Let's talk about 9/11 a little bit. How did 9/11 affect you when it happened, after it happened? What about 9/11? Talk about 9/11.
I was at Station 8 that day.
Well, tell us, they say 9/11.
When 9/11 happened, I was, that morning, I was at Fire Station 11. I think it was a Tuesday morning. I was at Station 11. No, Station 8, I'm sorry. I was at Station 8 and getting ready to get off duty. And I had the TV on in my room and I was finishing up some reports that I had to do. And I glanced up at the TV because I heard something about a plane crashing in New York. And I looked up and I saw it, and David Spears was my battalion commander. I walked into his office and I told David, I said, have you seen this? What's going on in New York? And so we started watching it, and we were standing there together when the second plane crashed. We saw it crash into the building. And so he immediately headed downtown, and I was getting off that day. So I told him, I said, David, if the fire department needs me for anything, call me, let me know. And so I left and went home. But it was.
Do you think that changed the way the public looked at the fire service after that happened?
I think the public looks at the fire service, I don't know any different. Before that happened, the city of Greensboro, we were always respected and looked at a lot better than the police department, I think. We were always there when people needed us, while the police department was there sometimes to maybe arrest people or something. But I think nationwide, to answer your question, nationwide, I think there was a large emphasis on the fire service, and it was fires we lost in New York that day, and the police officers too. Even there was a lot of memorials for police and fire during that time. I think mostly because of the tragic number of lives that were lost that day in New York.
343.
Yeah.
Okay, Danny.
The first person that really impressed me or impacted me any was a gentleman by the name of Lonnie Sprinkle. He was one of the finest people I've ever known. And he would take me aside and talk to me and explain things to me if I had questions. I was at Station 5 then, and he was the battalion chief there. And he was just a fine man. Of course, like so many other people, I'll mention J.E. McCarter. J.E. was my captain for a while down at Station 11. I learned so much from him, just about being a good person and treating people right. And but there were others, Chief Parrish. Of course, some of the guys I worked with, I didn't have to be officers. I worked with some really great guys. Your brother, Raymond, Woody Parrish, Roger Collis, guys that just stand out on the fire department. I mean, they're history makers in the fire service. The saddest time, the hardest time for me on the fire department, or one of the saddest moments, I was at Station 11. Fred Lawrence was my captain, and Bobby Taylor was our driver. Well, without getting into a lot of personal stuff, Bobby and his wife had separated, and Bobby hadn't seen his two sons, Bobby Jr. and Kenny, in a couple years, and he'd been trying to locate them. Well, they came home, and Bobby got custody of them, and it was in the summertime, and my family, we had gone to the beach. We were at Myrtle Beach, and Fred called me, and let me set this up by saying Bobby Taylor was a fine man. I thought the world of Bobby, and he was so happy to have his boys back. And Fred called me down at the beach and told me that Bobby Jr. had died, that he had drowned. He was swimming in a pond, and he had pants on, I think jeans, and he got them hung in a fence that was under the water and couldn't get loose, and he had drowned. And just seeing Bobby deal with that, and it was heart-wrenching. He would, Bobby would walk the floors at night we'd wake up in the morning and he'd be still in his uniform laying on his bed. It was just it was a tough time for him, and it made it hard for all of us. Our hearts went out to him. That was a horrible time. Well, I had a lot of proud moments. The thing that made me proud was to see the guys that worked with me. I don't want to say for me, but worked with me. We worked together as a team. Our whole battalion did. But to see my drivers get promoted to captains and my captains get promoted to battalion chiefs, I was proud of those guys, and that was kind of my proudest moments, to see them move up. Female firefighters, when they were hired, I worked with, I think the only female I worked with on my shift was Mitzi Rice at Station 14. And Mitzi worked hard, and she did a good job. I would do it all over again. I enjoyed it. Like I said, the first fire call I rode, the first night I was at the fire station, I fell in love with the job. Every day was exciting, could be something different. Some days were just routine and mundane, but there was always that chance that you were going to go out at any time and have to do something maybe that you'd never done before, or do something that you do every day. Every fire was different. The last day I was on the fire department, 3 o'clock in the morning, we had a working fire. So I had a working fire the first night I was there, I had a working fire the last night I was there. It was kind of a great send-off, I think, for me. The roles of firefighters have changed. That we were just getting into a high-level rescue, the swift water rescue. I think they have, well, at least we were starting to get into, what is it, tunnels and trench rescue. Yes, trench rescue at that time. And so back when we came through, it was mostly medical calls and firefighting. And nowadays, they're into all different areas of rescue. And my wife, bless her heart, raised 2 girls while I was working at the fire department, going to school, working some part-time, and she did a fantastic job. And I grew up in a family of faith. My dad was a pastor of a church, my brother pastored a church, so you know, your faith is just part of your life. It's the way you live, and it's always been there for me. Oh, when I was on the fire department, when I first came on the fire department, some of the stuff that went on then that does not or cannot go on now was just, we had a phantom at Old Central Station, and he was active, pretty active. We did. I was with some great guys up there right out of training. I was with Raymond and Woody and O.C. Johnson, Bob Oakley, Kyle Stewart, Parker, Jim Parker. We just had a great time. We did our job, but when we had time to relax or time to our own, we were just right together doing something. And we did some, you know, there were some fun times.
Tell us what the Phantom is. They don't know what the Phantom is.
The Phantom was, I don't know. I never saw him that I know of, but you'd end up with an egg in your boot. You'd be walking out on the street and a bucket of water would come flying down on your head, and you look up and nobody would be there. That's the Phantom. But all kinds of stuff. Your hat would be in the freezer with water in it, that kind of thing. After Old Central, I'm sure the Phantom spread out. He's still alive, maybe, but not to the extent he was then. I'm going to tell you a story about one of the mysteries. I don't know if it's a mystery anymore or not, but it's a mystery in the fire department. The inception or the beginning of Big Bird. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to tell you how it happened, how it started. There's a lot of myths, a lot of questions about this in the fire department. I was battalion chief of Battalion 2. Headquarters was Station 7. I was going to be late the morning. I had something to do, so I had called Captain Ed Sawyer, who is a legend in the fire department. Captain Sawyer, and I asked him to ride the car for me until I got in. I'd be in about 10 o'clock. He said he would. So when I got to the station around 10, everybody was gone. So I called communication. I said, "What's going on?" They said, "They got a fire up there at the right beside the curb market, Bessemer Curb Market. There was a little nursery there, sold straw and all that kind of stuff. Got a fire there." So I got in my truck and I rode up there. And I walked over to the car where Ed Sawyer was. And at that time, we had just gotten new yellow turnout gear, if you remember that or not. And Chief Hilliard was there in his new turnout gear. And you know how big he is. And my kids at the time, they watched Big Bird, Sesame Street and all that. And I just looked at Ed and I said, "When Big Bird show up?" And Ed started chuckling. And you know, he had that cigarette sticking up like this. He just started laughing. And I said, and he said, "Big Bird, yeah." So I told him, I said, "Well, y'all about finished here. I'm going back to the station. Yeah, and I'll see you there." So I went back to the station. Well, unbeknownst to me, the next thing I know, Ed had called Station 1. And those guys, they just took it to a different level. They had a nest on his bed, yellow feathers in his room, had Big Bird tracks in the parking lot. It was just, and it went on and on and on and on. And I
So Danny, you're the one that named.
Well, I'm the one.
Big Bird.
I'm just the one that mentioned the name. I didn't take it. I mean, I wasn't going any further with it.
Okay.
It was just an observation on my part.
That's been a mystery for a long time. I'm thinking you did this on camera.
I was just I didn't want it to just nobody ever knowing. My advice to a new recruit would be to give it all you got. Work hard. This job will reward you if you put all your effort and all into it. You're going to reap a lot of good things. I'm a firm believer that you reap what you sow, and if you put effort into the job's going to reward you. And I would like the Greensboro Fire Department to remember me for the fact that at every level of the fire service that I was in, I worked as hard as I could to be the best I could be. And I think the guys that work with me and the guys that worked for me know that I would have done anything for them that I could, and that I loved the job. I laughed a lot, cried a little, but I gave it my all and every step of the way. I'd like to leave a special word or to, all the guys on the fire department. Gentlemen, I enjoyed my time with you. We went through a lot together. Like I said, we had some great times. We had some sad times, but through it all, we were close. We were brothers, and if there's everything I can do to help one of you out, just call me. I retired in January of 2005. What I miss most about the fire department is the people, the guys I worked with, the job. I have people ask me about the fire service, about incidents that we had, fires that we had, people that were hurt, people that we pulled out of fires and things like that. And they want to know how you failed and everything. And I told them, I said, you know, that's a job. That's what we do as the firefighters. I was fortunate enough to be firefighter of the year in North Carolina one year, and I had to give a little speech. And it's like I told the people there that day, I'm not special. There's guys all across this state and all across this country that's doing exactly the same thing that I did, that to earn this thing or to get this. And that's the same way with the guys in the fire department. It's a job. We go do that job. And while we're doing the job, we're not worried about, there's no feelings other than getting the job done. Now, after we get back to the fire station and we clean up, take a shower and clean up, get our stuff, get our equipment clean, and we go sit at the table and drink a cup of coffee, there's some emotions then because of what we just saw and what we had just been through. But at the time that the operation is going on, it's all business. It's what we do. And I don't know, some people can't understand that because of the fact that, you know, they see somebody hurt or something and right away they panic and they start, but firefighters, you know, remain calm. I'm looking for a solution. You get there and there's a problem. First thing we're looking for is how are we going to relieve this problem? How are we going to take care of this situation? And while other people may be, who are not used to it, or just kind of go to pieces. But that's the nature of the job. That's what we do. I'd like my family to remember me as a loving father, a loving husband, who put my family first. The guys that I worked with, the guys on the department, I loved you all, and we were a team. We were brothers, and I appreciate each and every one of you. But what we're doing here today with the Historical Society Fire Department is creating a record that people can come and, you know, several years from now they can come. It's just kind of like reading an old logbook. I used to love to do that. We'd have all those logbooks at the station. Every once in a while I'd get one that was 10 or 15 years old and open it up and read it. And, you know, things haven't changed that much. It's what we do. But this is a I won't say a living record, but it's a visual account of what the fire department was like, and some of the people that were in the fire department, what we were like. And I hope somebody sees it one day and appreciates it.
Well, your great-great-grandchild will. There's a great-grandpa Danny Waller. Look at him. He was a good firefighter.
I got one of those. I got a great one.
Okay.
I got 4 great-grandsons.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Well, they're gonna look at this one day. I promise you.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay.
In closing, the Greensboro Firefighters History Book Committee hopes you have gained a greater insight into the dangers, the challenges, and emotional events that have influenced and shaped the American firefighter.